Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. And the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipātā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Adinādāna vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Kāmesu micchācārā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Musāvādā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Surameraya majjapamadatthāna vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, and good evening, everyone. Tonight we are starting this new topic called this Madhupindika Sutta. And basically it's about trying to describe how does perception come to play in dependent origination. So the sort of theme is suggested by Susan, but this question on this perception is by the person who is not here today. So anyway, we shall talk about it since it's relevant to the theme. And yes, next slide. Okay, so I'll just briefly read through the sutta, and along the way, if there's anything to comment, then I'll comment. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying among the Sakyans near Kapilavatthu in the Banyan Park. Then in the early morning, having adjusted his lower robe and taking his bowl and outer robe, he went into Kapilavatthu for alms. Having gone for alms in Kapilavatthu, after the meal, returning from his alms round, he went to the great forest for the day's abiding. Plunging into the great forest, he sat down at the root of a young clump of bamboo for the day's abiding. Okay, so yes, so Evelyn is here, so she's the one that suggested on perception and dependent origination. So we just started. Okay, so we talk about the first statement, this lower robe and outer robe. So the lower robe is basically like the sarong, the one that the monks wear inside. Then there's one more, upper robe. Upper robe is normally what the monks wear. So if you look at the statue here, this is the one that is wearing, that you see prominently covering the entire surface of the body. That is called the upper robe. And there's one more thing called outer robe. Sometimes you may see monks wearing another, putting a set of cloth on the shoulder one long rectangular rope on the shoulder. So that's the outer rope. So normally the outer rope is for winter season, then they use outer rope. So the outer rope is exactly like the upper rope, which is the one in the diagram in the picture, just that the outer rope has double layer, so it's a thicker version of the upper rope. So most people normally they don't wear the outer rope, they just like fold it up. But in this case, so if the Buddha take the outer rope out, it means he goes for alms round before daybreak. So in the Thai tradition, we have this interesting interpretation that the monks need to be an arm's length distance. An arm's length distance, that means the hand, arm's length distance from your 3 sets of ropes at the point of daybreak. So that's the rule, because it's more like in the army, they have this equipment check. So at the daybreak, when the monks are sort of like gathered for the morning chanting, all your equipment must be with you, something like that. Because those days, ropes are also prone to robbery. People can rob your ropes. So it's kind of like to check all your equipment is there. So I'm not sure how accurate is the Thai interpretation. Like in the Sri Lankan tradition, they can leave their ropes in the room and they can just walk around away from the more than arm length distance, as long as the ropes is in the monastery. So again, so if let's say the Thai interpretation is correct, so if the Buddha have to take the outer rope with him out, that means he goes for the alms round sort of before daybreak, so that by the time he arrives to the household, the sun already has risen. So that's the to play safe. So when he has reached the to the whatever house, take his food, and by the time you walk back, also need time, right? So this to play safe, so you have the sort of 3 set of ropes with you. Yeah, so he comes back after the meal. Interestingly, he sits down and meditate. Right, it's not like after the meal then he lie down and fall asleep. So this is his meal, and the Buddha takes 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day. Right? Some monks they may take 2 meals. So the Buddha is he take 1 meal a day. So he goes for the alms round. He comes back. So that's his only meal, and he sits down and he starts to meditate. Okay, next. Then there's this particular person called Dandapanin, stick in hand. That's the translation. The Sakyan, out roaming and rambling for exercise, also went to the great forest. Plunging into the great forest, he went to the Blessed One under the young clump of bamboo. On arrival, he exchanged courteous greetings with him. After an exchange of friendly greetings and courtesies, he stood to one side. As he was standing there, he said to the Blessed One, "What is the contemplative's doctrine? What does he proclaim?" Right, so people will think, oh, Sakyan is your own kinsman. Yeah, Sakyan, the Buddha is also a Sakyan. Yeah? So the same tribe or same clan, and people will think, okay, Sakyan should respect the Buddha. So the friendly courtesies, and greetings seems okay, but afterwards, what you see in the next 1 or 2 slides may surprise you. Okay, next. So the Buddha answered his question. The sort of doctrine, friend, where one does not keep quarreling with anyone in the cosmos, with its devas, maras, brahmas, with its contemplatives and brahmans, its royalty and common folk, the sort of doctrine where perceptions no longer obsess the Brahman, who remains dissociated with sensuality, free from perplexity, his uncertainty cut away, devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming. Such is my doctrine. Such is what I proclaim. Right. So the Buddha is talking about his teachings that sort of end arguments and unnecessarily quarreling. When this was said, Dandapanin the Sakyan, shaking his head, wagging his tongue, yeah, so now he's getting more disrespectful, raising his eyebrows so that his forehead was wrinkled in 3 furrows, left leaning on his stick. Right, so so when he talks about leaning on his stick, so this Dandapanin could be either an old person or somebody like handicapped. Yeah, he has a stick. All right, so probably that's the answer might have offended this Dandapanin. And why would the Buddha answer in such a way? How is this answer relevant to Dandapanin? Probably through the earlier exchange of courtesies and greetings, Dandapanin might have talked about his arguments, his quarrels and arguments. So the Buddha will sort of give this answer. His teaching is how to end quarrels, not to quarrel, not to keep quarreling with anybody. So I think this Dandapanin might have taken this as a personal attack, so he feels offended, so he responded in this manner. Okay, next. Then the Blessed One, emerging from his seclusion in the evening, went to the Banyan Park, and on arrival sat down on a seat made ready. Having sat down, he told the monks what had happened. When this was said, a certain monk said to the Blessed One, Lord, what sort of doctrine is it, where one does not keep quarreling with anyone in the cosmos? So it's a repetition of the entire statement, with its devas, maras, brahmas, with its contemplatives and brahmans, its royalty and common folk, where perceptions no longer obsess the Brahman, who remains dissociated from sensuality, free from perplexity, his uncertainty cut away, devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming. So the monks are interested in the answer. What kind of teaching? Right. So basically, it's the teachings that we've been teaching all the while throughout all the Zoom sessions. Probably these are monks who have not heard from the Buddha's teachings a lot. Yeah. So they want to know what's the answer, what's the Dhamma. Okay, next. So this is the Buddha's answer. So if you look at the underlined words, we'll be using it as a comparison later. Okay, so now the Buddha answer, if monk, with regard to the cause whereby perceptions and categories of objectification assail a person, so this is where perception comes to play, there is nothing there to relish, welcome, or remain fastened to. Then that is the end of obsessions of passion, the obsessions of resistance, the obsessions of views, the obsessions of uncertainty, the obsessions of conceit, the obsessions of passion for becoming, and obsessions of ignorance. Okay, so I just try to explain a bit first. Relish, welcome, and remain fastened to would probably be craving. Yeah, then obsessions, I treat it as clinging. So a person will either cling to passion, which is greed, or cling to resistance, which is aversion, or cling to views, which is a kind of delusion. So obsessions of uncertainty, which is doubt, one of the fetters also, one of the 10 defilements or fetters. The obsessions of conceit. So conceit is one of the 5 higher fetters which only an arahant can overcome. And obsessions of passion for becoming. Yeah, so this becoming also is one of the higher fetters, form and formless becomings. And obsessions of ignorance. Yeah, so ignorance is also the last fetter to be overcome by an arahant, and the first link of dependent origination. And the first factor of dependent origination is ignorance. Okay, that is the end of taking up rods and bladed weapons of arguments, quarrels, disputes, accusations, divisive speech, and false speech. That is where this evil, unskillful thing cease without remainder. So if a person were to not relish, that means if they do not welcome, they don't have the greed, then they will not cling, and by doing so, it will end these arguments and quarrels. So that's the answer. That is what the Buddha, the Blessed One said. Having said it, he, the one well gone, got up from his seat and went into his dwelling. So this is very similar to the previous sutta, an analysis of the statement. So this is going to happen again. The Buddha is making a statement which the Buddha will not analyze. And this will make the audience confused. The rest of the monks who listen it, what does the Buddha mean by all this? A lot of jargon, a lot of terms. So before the monks can actually approach the Buddha to ask questions, the Buddha left. He stood up from his seat and went back to his dwelling. Right? Okay, next. Okay, so this is the statement, a comparison. So the column on the right is basically the statement which the Buddha made, his statement. And on the left is the sort of dependent origination model, the one with the 12 links. So we are more focused on the exterior rim of the circle, which talk about ignorance, mental formation, and so on. So at the inner portion of the circle where they talk about past causes, present effects, so this is like the quite close to the 3 lifetime model which most people use. So in this case, if we start from with the statement, with perceptions, categories of this papancha. So the Pali word is actually papancha, the perceptions and categories of these thinking processes. Some call it proliferation. The thoughts get more and more, get more complicated, more complex. So we call this building up of these perceptions. Okay, so these thinking processes, basically it's everything from ignorance, which is the first link right from the top, all the way clockwise, all the way to feeling. So all these processes have been taken place, and we call these perceptions and categories of papancha. And if a person welcome it, so I highlight in red, so welcome it means craving, and then one will be obsessed. So obsessed means you have attachment, you're attached, you're obsessed. Yeah? And if a person is obsessed, there are obsessions for a few things, for passion, which is obsession for craving. The emotion of greed is very nice, or the emotion of hatred can be very nice, can be very addictive, so that's an obsession, attachment. Although we know these are negative emotions, But some people cannot stop. No, they can get angry the whole day, grumpy the whole day, or they get depressed the whole day. They want to get out of it, but cannot. Yeah, because it's a kind of clinging, attachment, addiction, obsession. Yeah, so once a person becomes obsessed, it becomes a becoming. It becomes their personality. I am a depressed person. I am an angry person. So you become that person, and once, let's say, become angry person, then you're subject to suffering, arguments, quarrel, disputes. So that's the suffering, birth, aging, sickness, and death. So all these occur actually sort of within one lifetime. And it can be brought forward to, like these arguments and quarrels, can be brought forward to the round back again to karmic formations, sankharas. Yeah, avijja pacha sankhara. Avijja means ignorance, and avijja pacha. Pacha means conditions, conditioned formations. Right. So these arguments, quarrels, and disputes, although it's kind of part of suffering, part of birth, aging, and death, it's also part of creating more verbal karma. Verbal karma. And when you speak wrong speech, quarrels, abusive speech, arguments, you're creating verbal karma. Yeah. So all these happen like a wheel. It's all connected. Yeah. So while you make arguments, quarrels, and disputes, you still have perception going on. You still have emotions coming in. The more you quarrel, then sometimes you need to take in feedback. Then you have different emotion again. Then more obsession, more thinking. And so all these, they come. No, it's like an avalanche. They come and come and come and come. So this is a cycle happening very fast. Every moment happening and happening and happening. You don't have to wait until next lifetime. You don't have to wait for previous lifetime. So this one is happening every moment, every second, every moment. All these links occurring and occurring and occurring, round and round and round. All right, so that's why I don't really agree with the 3 lifetime model. So the past, okay, so the 3 lifetime model, which is the sort of popular model used in most mainstream kind of Buddhist education, they will tell you past causes means your past life. So they'll tell you because of ignorance and based on your karma, yeah? So the mental formation is based on your past karma. So this karma is a fuel to push your consciousness, sort of your rebirth linking consciousness into the womb of your mother. Yeah? So this womb is actually, they call mind and matter, which is in the 4th link. Yeah, the mind and matter. So the consciousness here is the one that transit between your past life to your womb. So this is the rebirth linking consciousness, to link up the past and the present effects. So that's their explanation. But if you can see over here, you want to talk about something more practical, able to apply it here and now or see it here and now, then is this example by the Buddha. Yeah, based on these obsessions, then you have all these arguments and quarrels, all the suffering. You don't have to wait until your past life over. It's happening every moment. Then they talk about now we are mind and matter. So I would call it the metaphysical version, which is the mainstream education version, will tell you the womb will develop, the fetus will develop the senses, start to grow the eyes, start to grow the ears. So it will develop the 6 senses, and it will soon develop contact. So the baby, the fetus in the womb can respond to the mother, can hear, can kick the stomach and stuff like that, have contact, then have feeling, you have craving, make noise inside, and have attachment, becoming, and eventually birth. Yeah, so birth is come up from that means labor. That means there's two births. So conception, basically the conception, they call it rebirth linking consciousness into the womb. So that's one birth. And coming up from the mother's womb, the labor, that's another birth. So the 3 lifetime model has two births. Then, of course, in between, they will tell you if you want to apply practically, then they tell, if you're growing up, you still can have contact, have 6 senses and stuff like that. But you want to talk about the 3 lifetime model, then after birth, then straight away aging and death. Yeah, a bit hard to practice. So after aging and death, then it'll be the next lifetime already. So based on ignorance, you push this rebirth consciousness to another womb. Right? So this is the 3 lifetime model. So it works only with beings with womb. So if let's say beings without womb, spontaneous born beings like devas, spirits, they do not have wombs. Yeah, they sort of, according to Buddhist scripture, they appear like spontaneously. Then this thing doesn't work. Okay, so some comparison with the flaws of this 3 lifetime model. So in the Sutta version, mostly talks about every moment to moment, practical, applicable, you can see here and now, one of the 6 qualities of the Dhamma, without delay, you can see all this happening. So again, what we are going through is theory, and hopefully you are able to see it or experience it. So suffering we can experience now. So now it's basically putting these labels to the suffering. Yeah, putting the labels to identify the suffering, how does this suffering occur, and this is the sort of the wheel. Okay, so now it's 9 o'clock. I don't want to overload your brain with this information. I open the floor to questions. Any questions on the ground? You can display the model. Terence can continue and we can let the participants ask questions. Anyone? Or your brain is still digesting, still processing?
Sorry, Bhante, perhaps I confused the concept. Did you say that perception is from the first 6 or 7?
Yeah, perception would be like in between feeling and craving.
Perception.
Yeah, in between feeling and craving. So that's where perception lies. So perception is more like a summary, or somebody want to make a synopsis of what's going on from number 1 to number 7.
So if I could take the example I previously mentioned, if somebody has some brain injury and they could see well, it means there's high consciousness is there, but they cannot recognize the object. So if that's the case, the defect is in the mental formation.
Yeah, if a person has brain injury and they sort of cannot see well, right?
They can see well.
Oh, they can see well. Okay. Yeah, then I think it's
Cannot
got to do
recognize.
with, I think probably part with perception also.
Right.
They might have different perception of that image.
Right. So it's why I'm thinking, is perception. So that mental formation is not considered a perception.
Yeah, actually, you are also correct, because the kind of, in a way, a kind of the karma, the way they choose to interpret the image will be different. Yeah, so the karma, the ripening of that thought formation, why they choose to interpret this image in this way or that way, so that is a karmic formation. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Don't talk about brain damage. Even a normal functioning person, everyone will understand these things differently. Yeah, so everyone's, we call it the karma, yeah? The blessings or the merits or the karma that ripen upon contact interpretation, everyone will perceive it differently. Yeah.
Bhante, so I mean, I'm looking at this dependent origination links, and then I'm thinking about also the five skandhas, the 色受想行识, and I mean perception is also in there, and some of the other things as well. Is it, like how do these two different concepts come together?
Yeah, very good. So normally, this dependent origination shouldn't be the first topic taught to beginners. The first thing to be taught to beginners should be the five clinging aggregates. So you talk about the five aggregates, we should start there first. So once a person is able to practice observing the arising and passing of the five aggregates, especially in daily life through the six senses, then you can slowly introduce this bigger picture yeah, on these 12 links.
So does that mean that the five skandhas is like basic, and then this is expands on that? It's also, so the five skandhas is kind of captured inside here, but that's not really true, right? Because I think they have, you start with form and then feeling, perception, and then the very last one is vijnana, which translates as consciousness.
Okay, so the five aggregates is not like really arranged in chronological order, not in sequence of sort of how the processes are run, whereas this dependent origination is more or less quite arranged in chronological order, whereas the five aggregates is arranged in practical accessibility, which one is obvious and easier to perceive. So form is the easiest to perceive because it's very tangible, the four elements very tangible, and followed by feeling. Feeling is the mind level already. So feelings again is quite tangible because you have pleasant, unpleasant feelings. Then the more subtle level, then we talk about perception. Yeah, you try to identify the object, you give a label to that object, so that is perception. Then the more refined level will be this mental formation, and then followed by this consciousness, yeah, which is your attention and awareness. Okay, so that's why we teach five aggregates first, so that meditators can have a feel, can detect, can sort of traverse your way around understanding the five aggregates, understand mind matter, before we talk about these 12 links. So normally in the meditation routine, we don't really talk about 12 links that much. We talk about the five aggregates. But once you really understand the five aggregates, then you can really link up with the 12 links. So by giving you this theoretical information, then it's like giving you this jigsaw puzzle. Then if most of your jigsaw is in place, the 5 aggregates, you understand it very well, then you can figure out the missing piece. Right? If I straight away give you this 12 links piece without you having placed the 5 aggregates in your jigsaw puzzle, then it can be very confusing.
Hi, Bhante.
Yep.
Check with you. Will it be actually touching on the 5 aggregates, maybe after this sutra?
Oh yeah, we'll 5 aggregates is often talked about. Yeah, so we talked about in the previous series, and of course in future we'll also mention it again and again. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else?
Bhante, I have a question.
Okay.
So we have always said that as part of meditation, the eventual effect we will experience is that there will be a increase in distance between the thoughts and the feelings that come to our mind versus the time that we respond to events, so to speak. So when we are doing that, I assume that is to try to extend the time period between the 6 senses and the contact. So is that the way to understand it, so that even though we have the feelings, which will still give rise to perception, and then the whole circle will go through over again?
Yeah, the concept of quick or slow response, whether you can really like do like the matrix slow down, these bullets of different hostile scenarios coming towards you, to your mind, and you're going to react by dodging, mentally dodging. Again, that is a kind of perception also. Yeah, so in a way I would, again, my perception would be what we're doing is actually creating a greater sense of contentment, a greater sense of peace. So if we reduce craving, then we are actually creating more peace, more contentment. So when we are more contented, then we have less incentive to react in unwholesome way. These unwholesome emotions are also addictive. So peace also is another emotion. It can be initially addictive. I mean, the initial, when we talk about like levels of concentration and stuff like that. So as long as we still have defilement, we will cling on something. So it's better to cling on something wholesome than to cling on something unwholesome. Yeah? So it's a bit like a tug of war, whether you want to cling on to the wholesome states of mind or cling on to the unwholesome states of mind.
Oh, okay. So am I understanding correctly, if is to summarize, to say that from the ignorance all the way to the feelings, we may try to, as much as possible, change the perception that we have, and that will then further change the way we have craving, attachment, etc. And then at the point of perception is the point that we are able to, it's like a gatekeeper, whether do we filter it through or not.
That could be one way of perceiving it, like when we think of thoughts of loving kindness, or we think of impurities of the body. It's a kind of perception also.
Okay. I still need a bit of time to digest.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions? Or you'll need more time to digest, then we have a 5-minute break first and let you digest. Then come back for more Q&A. Huh? Okay, so we have a 5-minute break before we come back for this Q&A or guided session. Okay, see you all later. Okay, I'm back. Let's see who else is back early. Okay, so far so good. Oh, okay, no issues.
Bante, Bante, can I check with you? Where can I get information, like any notes or anything regarding the 5 aggregates and the 6 senses?
Okay,
because I like to read into it and then to improve on my meditation.
Okay, all right.
Where can I get those info from?
I think we talk about the 6 sextets, 6 sextets. So there's a sutta on the Chachaka Sutta.
How you spell that, Bante? Chachaka.
Maybe I type, maybe I find the link or something, share in the chat. We covered that, I think, last year, right, Terence? Yeah.
The last year or the year before?
Yeah.
And plus the 5 aggregates also, Bante?
Yeah,
thank you.
It should be
okay, thank you so much.
As well, huh?
Bante, sorry, I cannot on my video because I think I'm having a hiccup on and off today. I don't know what's happening.
Okay. Yeah, I found the link already. Okay, so I sent it in the chat. Hopefully you can see it. So again, reading the scripture is one thing, interpreting and putting into practice is another. So there's this thing called oral tradition, which is basically repeating and memorizing the words. And there's another thing called mentoring, spiritual friend, spiritual mentor. So the mentor, the teacher, I think the Mahayana will call it oral transmission. So you need a guide to actually sort of coach or give proper instruction to how to apply these words or these the scriptures. It's a bit like, for example, martial arts or taekwondo or karate or kung fu. If a person were to, last time, if imagine the person who invent a certain martial art, they put their martial arts into writing. If any beginner were to just read the book, do you think they can execute the moves? No diagram, no video. Imagine ancient times, no video. And they just put into writing. And they read the book, then they just treat it as a novel, and then they fantasize how the move looks like and stuff like that. But if there is a coach, the instructor were to, based on the book as a syllabus, and sort of coach the student. So whatever the student do the moves, if it's wrong, the coach will know. They'll tell you, okay, you kick in the wrong angle, you turn the body in too fast or too slow. So something like that. So meditation is, in a way, is a kind of more like a practical kind of a skill or a kind of art. So it requires the experiencer, this someone who is more have experienced it, or a veteran in a practice to sort of guide the newcomer. Yeah, so it's not just theory. Academic is one thing, so there's also the practical side. Hopefully the analogy is useful, but never mind. Okay, anyone else? Any issues? If not, yeah.
Sorry, Bhante. Even I agree that perception is is vastly summarized between feeling and craving. But now that when I look deeper into this, like paying more attention to each of the 12 links, it appears to me that perception can be actually at every stage. It's not just between feeling and craving, but maybe more prominent and less prominent in certain areas. Is that a right perception?
Yeah, once you give a label or you call this a feeling, that's a perception already.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it can be, it's actually across all 12.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So interesting insights from Evelyn here. Okay, so if there's nothing, then we can start, huh? So we turn off the mic, make sure we're seated comfortably, back upright, and the rest of the body relaxed. So the first thing we are going to do again is the impurities of the body meditation, some visualization. So that visualization is actually using the mind door consciousness. And we start to think of all the hairs, visualize all the hairs from head to toe. And just by visualizing only may not remove craving. Yeah, basically when we create a contact, we perceive this is a hair of the head, or this is a white hair, this is a black hair. And by doing so, we have different feelings. We like our hair, it's nice looking, or we don't like our hair, unpleasant feeling. Yeah, then the mind will have this thing called craving. And once it craves, then it will suffer. So what we are doing now is trying to reduce the craving. Every time we think of this image, we wish it well and happy. And when we move on to a new patch of hair, then the same thing, we repeat the wish again, wish it well and happy. So every time a new formation, new thought, new image, then new contact, new feeling, and new conditions for craving. So every time must put in the effort, right effort to lower the craving, reduce the craving. So new patch of hair, wish it well and happy. New patch of hair, wish it well and happy. And then you can observe your mind, the mental quarrelings and disputes, the restlessness. Is it increasing or decreasing? And when your mind is relatively calm, then we continue to attack the craving further using impermanence. So this one is to reduce greed. Earlier on, loving kindness is to reduce aversion. So we think of the hairs going through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you can think of them growing and falling, many cycles. So we keep looping this image. While looping this image, we can observe the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. So the image of the hair, that is a kind of form. But if you can feel the 4 elements to that thought, to that image arising, that is also the 4, that's part of the 4 elements, the 5, the form aggregate. And again, whatever image that appear, there will be feeling. When you think of the hair growing, one kind of feeling. When you think of the hair falling, another kind of feeling. It could be pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And together it also has perception, all the labels you give to that hairs. You can call it a white hair, long hair, young hair, old hair, falling hair. And sometimes perception can be translated as memory. The image that you generate or you deliberately generate is based on a certain memory. Is it really your own hair? Sometimes not everybody has 100% photographic memory. Sometimes that image may be someone else's hair, or it could be a made-up hair. So is memory really reliable? Is perception reliable? Can you have total control over this perception? I want it to be shaped in this way. I want it to be this color only. How long can you sustain that image? And the next one is mental formation. Every time the image changes, because new mental formation. Every time new image, new formation. And the last aggregate, which is consciousness. This is the awareness. So now we're using the mind or consciousness. Our eyes are closed, so we are using the imagination. So even that awareness, is it permanent or impermanent? Is the intensity the same? Is it changing? Is it always staying put at one location, or is it jumping? If you're hearing what I'm talking, then you're already using your ear consciousness. Right? So the consciousness always sort of run around or always arise with the different sense doors. And your attention, the area of attention, is very much dependent on the 4 elements. The 4 elements will sort of demarcate, will encapsulate your awareness, the area of awareness. So when you're aware of something, there's movement, there's maybe density, there's tension. So that's part of the earth element maybe, yeah? Subtle earth element. If there's movement, then that's the air element. Then we can ask ourselves, are these hairs, are these 5 aggregates, are they truly self? So the purpose of doing any exercise, meditation exercise, like what we're doing now, is not to make our hair look better. We think of the hair growing and falling, you stimulate the growth of the hair. No, this exercise is actually to learn to let go of the 5 aggregates. Not to talk about learning let go of the body. Yeah, the sense of self is not, sometimes not, the body even. Some people, like maybe children, they are online, the video games the whole day. Their sense of identity, sense of self, their clinging is external, is this imaginary virtual world. So what we're talking about is about letting go of the 5 aggregates, letting go of this clinging that gives rise to this becoming sense of self. Why do I feel hurt? Why do I feel upset? And because of this clinging to these 5 aggregates. Why do I experience suffering? But if a person can let go of this clinging, which results in the reduction or disappearance of the self, you become more selfless, then who is suffering? Yeah, so the focus is on impermanence, generating right thought, reducing this craving. So that's why in Four Noble Truths, back again to basic, streamline the 12 links to Four Noble Truths. The cause of suffering is craving, which is the, I think, the 8th link in the dependent origination. Okay, then now we switch to the 4 sublime states meditation. So we're going to not visualize anymore, so we are switching to the body sense door. So now not so much on the mind sense door, body sense door. So whatever sensation that you feel appearing in the body, then you just wish it well and happy. So these sensations are the 4 elements. So we're now being mindful of the 4 elements of the body. Earth, fire, wind and water elements. Earth element represents any hard or soft sensations. Fire element represents any hot or cold sensations. Wind element represents any kind of movement, fast or slow movements. And water element, the moist or dry. So there is no need to purposely create those sensations. We let it appear naturally by themselves. So whatever sensation appear, we just make peace with them, wish them well and happy. reduce the craving, no struggling, no fighting. So it's more acceptance, making peace, making friends with this, all these sensations. And together with these sensations, some people may not be able to feel the sensations, then you need something stronger, right? So we have this thing called feelings. Sometimes you have uncomfortable feelings, painful feelings that come together with these elements, or pleasant feelings. So whatever feelings you have, whatever sensation you have, make peace with them, wish them well and happy. New sensation arise, new feeling arise, wish them well and happy. So we keep repeating the process. So the more you make peace with all these sensations and these feelings, the mind will settle down to this baseline emotion, generally calm, rather bland, but okay, still generally calm. So no matter what you experience, keep on wishing all the sensations well and happy. And next we are going to cultivate a boundless loving kindness. We are going to wish all beings in all directions well and happy, above, below, and all across. So there's no need to push the mind. We sort of let it expand naturally by itself, and no need to visualize. Because once you visualize, a perception of certain beings, a certain perception of past experiences or stereotypes, a certain group of beings, then it will generate certain kind of emotion. So we don't want that. We want to cultivate a non-discriminative approach, and we perceive all beings as the 4 elements, 5 aggregates. So whatever sensation you may experience, we wish all beings well and happy. So the sensations or feelings may appear inside the body or outside the body, near or far. As long as you can detect something, then mentally we wish all beings well and happy. A new sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. new sensation appear. May all beings be well and happy. So the more we generate this thought of loving kindness, boundless loving kindness, wishing all beings well and happy, not just any particular person, we call this right understanding, right thought. And the more we repeat right effort, and if all the Noble Eightfold Path factors are in place, the conditions are right, then one may experience right concentration. So the wishing of all beings well and happy may lead one to experience the first level of concentration, which is denoted by peace, joy and happiness. Yeah? So if there's any increment of joy and happiness compared to the baseline emotion, then that would indicate you are at the first level. And regardless of what you experience, continue to turn the Dharma wheel. Keep on wishing all beings well and happy. Once you stop only and hold on to any state of mind, and this becomes clinging. Craving and clinging. So what we are doing is placing this or observing this peaceful state or this pleasant state. It's like having the candy there, but not addicted to the candy. Yeah, so we're training the mind, okay, not to get trapped by the candy, not to get trapped by the candy. So we can experience this peaceful state, but mentally we remind ourselves, wish all beings well and happy, wish all beings well and happy, not to get trapped by this ball of honey. Okay, and next we are going to add some insight, some wisdom, and we are going to reflect on impermanence, cultivate a more unconditional kind of loving kindness. So we are going to observe the arising and passing of all the sensations or feeling sensations, how they arise and pass away. every moment. So that's your real-time evidence. And in the meantime, you can also sub-vocalize in your mind. You can repeat any word or phrase that is associated with impermanence. You can use rising, falling, impermanence, change, anicca, whatever. So that is to convert the observation into wisdom. So if there is a surge of joy, so we call it Dhamma joy, so that is a sign of detachment. And again, regardless of what you experience, continue to keep reflecting on impermanence. And if that joy and happiness start to dissipate or disappear, one may experience a kind of neutral and refreshing emotion. We call this equanimity. So in this particular routine, there's a combination of both jhanic, concentrative kind of equanimity, and also this insight, vipassana kind of equanimity, because we're reflecting on impermanence. So regardless of what you experience, continue to keep reflecting on impermanence. Everything else is just bonus. Emphasis is on turning the Dharma wheel. Keep traveling along the middle path. Do not get sidetracked and langa into all those extra sights. No matter how peaceful, how nice, how pleasant, keep turning the wheel. Once we stop impermanence, that means the mind will be inclined to permanence, a kind of delusion, a kind of craving, obsession with delusion. Okay, then we switch to the second sublime state, which is compassion, and we are going to wish all beings may they be free from suffering. So similarly, we are using the non-discriminative approach. We treat all beings as the 5 aggregates. So all beings, regardless of health, status, economic status, they cling onto these 5 aggregates and create suffering, result in suffering. So whenever we detect any sensation which is part of the 5 aggregates, we are going to wish all beings may they be free from suffering. So when we wish all beings, yourself is also naturally included. So new sensation arise, may all beings be free from suffering. New sensation arise, may all beings be free from suffering. Okay, and similarly, if we keep repeating this wish, may all beings be free from suffering, and if the conditions are right, one may experience the second level of concentration, which is again denoted by the emotion of joy and happiness. So how do you know whether you enter concentrative kind of compassion? Is that this joy and happiness is there? So the mundane kind of compassion will be like very depressing, very sorrowful, and actually that's being caught up in suffering. And you get into the dramas of planning and worrying for people, and you suffer. So the real compassion, the middle way compassion is not that, not to get caught in the dramas. So we stick to the middle path, keep generating right thought, wish all beings may they be free from suffering. Okay, and we can add some insight, some wisdom to the routine, and we are going to reflect on how to truly overcome suffering. That is to keep reflecting on impermanence, all sensations, all phenomenon, how they arise and pass away. So again, mentally you can sub-vocalize any word or phrase associated with impermanence and keep repeating. And if let's say that joy and happiness start to disappear, the combination of this compassion and impermanence may lead one to experience a kind of blankness or spaciousness. So we call this the perception of infinite space. And same thing, regardless of what you experience, continue to tread the middle path, keep reflecting on impermanence. Once you cling on to any nice states of mind, and that itself is suffering already. Okay, and before we conclude this session, same gentle reminder in the Karaniya Metta Sutta. It is mentioned as long as we maintain these boundless, sublime states in all activities, standing, sitting, walking, or lying down, then this is the noblest living. And with that in mind, we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, but informally still can generate right thought. Okay, anyone has any problems, any issues? All okay, all right. Okay, if everyone's okay, then we can do the concluding chant. So this one is the dedicating merits. Akasatha ca Bhumata Deva Naga Mahitika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Loka Sasanang Etavata ca Amihi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabbe Deva Sabbe Buddha Sabbe Sata Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya. Dedication of merits to the departed. Idang me nyatinam hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinam hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinam hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Aspiration. Imina punya kamina mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu. Yavani bana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And again end with 3 bows to the Buddha. First bow. Second bow. And the third bow. Okay, so that's the end. Any announcements from Terence? Okay, if not, then good night and see you all next week.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Good night.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bante. Good night.
No problem.
bye.
Good night.
One thing.